and I was able to narrow down my list, and it prevented me from accidentally applying to a school that had requirements that I didn't fulfill, which happens more often than not to people. Get your transcripts from any colleges, universities that you attended, even if it was just for one class over the summer. Get them as soon as possible if you haven't already. You just want to have them in front of you while you're filling out your application. And a lot of times they can only be mailed to you, can't be printed out, or you have to pay, or it has to be processed. Sometimes you just don't receive them right away. Get your letters of recommendation early in advance, or at least ask for them early in advance. This is application season for like all grad schools, especially like medical, dental, all of the ones in healthcare. So professors and advisors and stuff kind of get bombarded with requests to write letters. A good idea is to give them a folder. I call them letter of rec folders, which we'll go over later. Have your personal statement done early and edited by multiple people. This is fun. This is when you get to talk about why you're doing what you're doing right now. And for me, it was a good study break because, like I said, I was studying for the DAT while I was doing all the application stuff. So it was nice to take a step back from the DAT and really remember why it's all worth it. And then most importantly, which is why we're here tonight, is you want to complete and submit your application as early as possible. If you can submit it on the day that it opens, that would be the best. Remember, dental school admissions are rolling admissions, and processing for your application can take up to 6 weeks. You want everything to be verified. You want to make sure that if something is missing by any chance, that it's caught early on. You have time to like send it in. You just don't want to wait. So some important dates: May 15th. So next week is when the application opens, and you should start filling it out. June 5th is your first day to submit it. So you have a little less than a month to submit, to work on it if you want to submit it on that June 5th date, which is what I highly recommend. The academic update periods are from August 15th to September 28th for first semester, and then December 3rd, 2018 to February 1st for the second semester. The application closes February 1st, 2019, and the last day to submit all of your documents is February 15th. Okay, so the first section of the application, just so y'all know, I am going to be looking at my application that I have saved from last year just to be able to give you guys some specific examples and advice. I just chose not to share it on screen, but if you notice that I'm saying things that aren't on the slides, that's fine. So the first section is biographic information. It's super simple, things like your name, contact info. You want to have your DENT PIN, which you probably already have memorized. You put down your current and permanent addresses. So this is one to just be careful about if you recently became an in-state resident like I did. I became an in-state resident the year that I was applying, and that was so that I could have in-state tuition for my state school, which I'm now a resident of. So just be careful. Don't accidentally put your parents' address as your permanent address if you are not a resident anymore there and you're trying to get in-state tuition for where you are currently living and working. You'll put your citizenship status, all that kind of stuff. You'll also have a section to answer questions about disciplinary violations, academic violations, felonies, misdemeanors. And the biggest thing here is don't lie. They are going to fact check and background check, and they'll find out if you're lying, and it's going to be a lot harder to explain why you lied versus just explaining the misdemeanor or whatever it is and how you've grown since then. They'll also ask family info, environmental factors, and childhood residency, and they do ask a little question with your childhood residency. They ask for a description. So what I did is I just said where I was born, where I was raised, which was Queens, New York, and although I'm currently living in Georgia, about how thankful I was to have grown up in such a diverse city among a lot of cultures. So I just kind of said what it meant to me being where my childhood residency was. I don't know if that's exactly what they wanted, but when I heard description, that's what I thought of. So next we have the academic history section. They'll ask for your high school attended, your DAT scores. If you are taking your DAT after around June 5th, so after your application, the application is like open or submitted, make sure you send it. You can submit your application without your DAT scores, send in your official scores unofficial scores as soon as you get them, and then send in your official scores. So that's what I would suggest doing. You're going to want to have list all of your colleges attended and your majors, and all of them. Even, like I said, even if it was just one class over one summer at a school back home, you have to list it. You're going to enter your coursework. This is where having your transcripts handy is a good thing. It's so tedious to sit and enter everything, but you want to make sure that you pay attention and you're not making any unnecessary mistakes, because that can slow down your processing when they verify it with your transcripts, because it won't match. You can enter them manually by semester, which is what I did and most people I know did, or there's an option to pay to have it entered. I believe you upload your transcript or something and they pull it themselves. Also in this section, after you submit it, you'll be able to see all of your GPAs calculated by AADSAS. And I mean, they calculate a ton. You have your GPA for each school, your bio, your chem, your physics, your biochem, your biochem, chemistry, physics all together, your science, your non-science, everything. And they have all different ways that they do it with and without, plus minus, and that's just to get everyone on the same playing field. Okay, so the next section is experience. This is a pretty long section if you're involved in school, like most of us applying to dental school are. You'll have to list the experience type, which could be either extracurricular activities, employment, research, dental shadowing, volunteering. The recognition type, whether it was volunteer work or you're paid, your title, your employer, your supervisor, the experience dates, the status, whether it was like full-time or part-time, the hours a week, total hours that you spent doing the experience, some details about the experience, and permission to contact. So you actually don't have a lot of space to talk about the experience details. So definitely make sure that you're being conscious of how that experience tied into, or why you did that experience, how it tied into dentistry, if it didn't tie into dentistry, what it meant to you. So really use that space the best way that you could. Just for some examples, some of my experiences were volunteer or like extracurricular activities. Recognition type was volunteering. Title was community service and special events chair. I put, if it was a club, like this example, I put pre-dental society under employer, and then University of Georgia, Athens, Georgia, and then supervisor, I put who our like faculty member was for that. So I had that. I put down my sorority, some other clubs that I did, a club that I was vice president of, more clubs. Then I put my employment. You also get to highlight a few of them that you kind of want to show up on there's a cover page that has all the highlights of your application. You get to choose, I think it was 3 or 4 of these experiences that you get to choose. So I put all my employments, my shadowing experiences, research that I did at school, volunteering that I did, mission trips that I went on, all of that. And you just want to list everything that was meaningful to you. Make sure you have it on there. And I'm trying to see which ones I highlighted just to like give y'all an idea. It's kind of hard though, because when you download the application, it's not in the same format as it was. But I highlighted that I was community service and special events chair of pre-dental society, that I was the vice president of UGA Red Cross, that I'm an orthodontic assistant, and that I worked for Kaplan Test Prep. And that I shadowed at Athens Family Dental. So it was kind of a mix of like volunteer, and then that I was a volunteer mentor in Athens. So I was able to highlight, I guess it was like 5, but I did some like volunteer ones, an employment one, a shadowing one, and one from an organization that I had a leadership position. And then there's an achievement section where you have the opportunity to list all of your awards, scholarships, and honors. Don't be stressed out if you don't have a lot of these. It's just, they want to know. It's not like a make it or break it part of the application. For this, you also list the name, organization, the date that you received the award, scholarship, or honor, and a little description about it. Okay, so finally, the fun part, the personal statement. You get 4,500 characters. That includes all your spaces, your letters, your punctuation. You don't get more. 4,500 sounds like a lot, but when you start writing, and especially like being passionate about dentistry and excited to go to dental school and stuff, we can talk on and on about this. So it actually becomes hard to fit it all into a nice written essay. You want to answer the question, who are you and why do you want to pursue a career in dentistry? And it's like, I feel like for all of us, we all know in our hearts why we want to do it. And then when it comes to having to put it on paper, we're like, how do we show the committee that we are this passionate about it? Avoid using the word passionate a lot. Describe why you're passionate. Use other adjectives, because every single person applying to dental school is passionate about dentistry. Tell your story, not what you think admissions committees want to hear. Oh, this is really important. Organize and outline before writing. Just write everything down, write all your ideas down, and then go from there, pick from there before you start writing, or else you'll get real overwhelmed. Don't personalize your essay for one specific school. You might want to go to your state school so badly and spend your whole essay talking about that one state and serving that state. You guarantee you won't get into any other schools if you do that. So don't put all your eggs in one basket kind of thing. You want to be positive throughout the whole thing. You want to be captivating, inspiring. Make sure you include the defining moment that led you to dentistry. And you want to make sure that your personal statement shows why you would make a great dentist, why schools want you. So kind of think of like everybody has their overlap. I like to think of it kind of like 3 circles or something of things that they're passionate about. And then the overlapping parts of the 3 circles are how they all overlap to form you perfectly for dentistry. So kind of think about all the different things you have going on and the different things in your personality and your academic, volunteering, and how that all goes together. So just to give you a little insight of the flow of my personal statement, I started off talking about, I said my opening statement was, as a child, my name was synonymous with smiling. And then I talked about what I wanted to be when I was in 3rd grade, what I wanted to be when I was in 6th grade, what I wanted to be when I was in high school. And then I entered college as a pre-med, on a pre-med track actually. And then I talked about how after that I sat down with my dentist, found out that I had like a dental emergency, which is what I call it because I'm dramatic, but about having to have a molar extracted, and how I began researching endlessly, watching demonstrations, just completely mystified by how obsessed I was with teeth. I talked about things that I got involved with after that, after switching my track to pre-dental after that experience, and getting involved with a research project that overlapped with teaching, which is what I wanted to be when I was in 3rd grade, a teacher. I talked about how I was able to volunteer and do a lot of things I was passionate about. And then adding on my double major, which was totally like, found out it was also related to dentistry, a service trip that I went on, volunteer work that I've done abroad and at home. And then I wrapped it up by just talking about how my parents are from a 3rd world country where oral health and health practices weren't really good over there. So I talked about how my pursuit of dentistry was fueled by, and then everything that it was fueled by, like wanting to alleviate the lack of healthcare at home and abroad. But mostly I brought it back to my beginning about how my high school self wants to be a dentist because I like health, medicine, and research. My middle school self wants to be a dentist because she loves fixing things with her hands. My elementary school self wants to be a dentist because she loves teaching and helping others understand. Above all, I want to be a dentist because it combines my career, my passions into a worthwhile career. So really make sure, like, this essay, reading it, I know it's kind of hard to follow as I was just saying, like, pieces of it, but it's an essay that really spoke to who I was, and it's not an essay that it described me only. Don't write an essay that could describe you and your friend that's pre-dental and your other friend. That's like a very generic essay. You want it to be you, what makes you special. Okay, so references and evaluations. Also, a really big part of the application. So you need references no matter what. The options for some people are getting individual letters, doing committee letter packet, or doing a composite letter. I didn't have the choice. It depends on your university. Some schools like mine don't offer the committee letter packet or composite letter, in which case you have to get from 2 science professors, 1 dentist, and 1 advisor, someone like that knows you personally from your school or an employer, stuff like that. So the committee letter, if you guys could get it from your school, it is when a committee, like your pre-health committee, writes a letter, prepares a packet. So it's either they write 1 letter together or they submit a bunch of letters. And this accounts for those 3 recommendations, those 3 letters, the 2 science professors and the dentist, and the advisor. You still have to get the dentists. A composite letter is similar, but this is only 1 letter, and it's not going to be a packet. And this also accounts for the science recommendations and the advisor's recommendation, but not the dentist. So if you are doing individual letters, which is what I did, I strongly recommend a letter of rec folder, which is what I was talking about earlier. What I did is I included a cover letter, just talking about the application when I was applying to dental school, thanking them. I included my personal statements. I included a copy of my transcript and a copy of all of my experiences, and a copy of all of these schools that I was applying to. So they kind of had a good idea of what was going on. A lot of times your professors know you as a student, but they don't know you in relation to your passion with dentistry and stuff. So it was kind of nice having them have my personal statement. I also emailed everyone that I wanted to write a letter of rec for me. I emailed beforehand and asked them if I could sit down and meet with them to give them this folder and just talk a little bit about my passions and my application to dental school. So then I met with them, talked for a little bit, gave them the folder, and then I'm pretty confident in saying that I think I had pretty strong letters of recommendation. Also really ask people that know you well. Don't ask like your biology professor from freshman year that you sat at the back of the class the rare times that you went. These are the people advocating for you. You want really strong, if you even have the slightest idea that they might write something negative about you, forget it. Just don't. If you didn't get a good grade in the class, don't get a recommendation from them. Also, there's an option to waive your right on the application to look at the letter. Always waive your right. There's also, so the way that I did it is I used Interfolio, and that's just because I wanted to collect all of my letters of recommendation before the application already opened up. So if y'all are watching this and not actually applying this year and maybe like watching just to gain an insight of what's to come next year, if you're starting to get your letters of recs, Interfolio is a great site. Your professors and whoever else is writing letters to you, just upload it to the Interfolio site and it's kept on there. And then you can go ahead and upload it from Interfolio to your application once the application is open. So it's kind of nice because professors and whoever else that you ask don't need to wait until the application is open to write and upload your letter of recommendation. So just to give you some examples, the 2 professors that I asked, the 2 science professors that I asked for my letters of recs were my evolutionary biology professor, which is a class I took my senior year, and my genetics, one of my genetics professors, which is a class I took my junior year. So both professors that I had recently taken a class, both classes that I had done well in, and both professors that I knew kind of were in line with some of my passions, if that makes sense. Like both had decided to go into academics, and I knew that they were very strongly involved in academics, and something that I want to do is eventually teach in a dental school, both involved in research, which is something that I'm involved in and want to be involved in dental school, stuff like that. I met with both of them, gave them my folder, and actually with both of them, I remember meeting and talking for over 45 minutes, just having them get to know me and get to know everything that they might want to know outside of the classroom and outside of my grades. I also asked the dentist that I shadowed with for the longest, that I had a really good relationship with, as my dentist. Don't ask, it's not really a good idea to ask if you have a lot of dentists in your family, or if your parent is a dentist, don't really ask them to be writing your letter of recommendation for that. Get someone else. It's just kind of a conflict of interest type thing. And then I asked my research professor, who I had done research for like 2.5 years, as my other one, like my advisor, for someone that knows me well. So after that section, there's a section for some custom questions, which include previous applications that you've had to dental school, relatives that you have in dentistry, and manual dexterity. A lot of people stress the manual dexterity question. I would say in my interviews, it came up about half the time, and that's probably only because I have some weird things on there. So the question says, describe any activities requiring manual dexterity. Activities requiring hand-eye coordination, such as cross-stitching, sewing, arts, crafts, playing musical instruments, auto repair, at which you're proficient. So I listed working with insects, collecting, handling, pinning, and displaying both small and large insect specimens in entomology courses and labs, because as a biotech major, I took a ton of entomology classes and collected a lot of bugs. I also listed auto repair. I work with my dad, who's a mechanic, a lot, repairing cars, and just doing some small jobs and some big jobs. And then I also listed sewing, painting canvases, frequent food prepping, and playing the snare drums for 3 years. So it's all just kind of things that they could be small things, but I think it's a good idea to have at least one unique thing in there, because like I said, it was brought up in some of my interviews, and it was kind of interesting to get to talk about it, and you know that they actually read that part of your application. Don't lie, don't say something, I don't like cross stitching. I have no idea how to cross stitch. Don't lie, because I've heard that at some interviews they actually take out something and have you prove it. That didn't happen at any of mine, but if I lied and that did happen, I would have been super stressed out about that. Oh, okay, we have a question. Do you recommend bio classes for letters of recommendations over a chemistry letter? I don't think that it makes a big difference. It just has to be a science professor. So if chemistry was your major, or the classes that you did well in, or that you had a really good, strong relationship with the professor, then I would just go with the chemistry one. I just think science meaning like biology, chemistry, physics, like those main science courses, not like I wouldn't have asked my entomology professor for my science recommendation. But I think chemistry is perfectly fine. Okay. So the next section, and the last section are supplemental questions. So these are actually, it used to be, I think actually maybe the year before I applied, so 2016, it used to be that you submit your application and then you're sent back a supplemental application, which still happens for some schools. I still got a supplemental application last year. I don't know if that'll happen this year, but a lot of schools had their supplemental questions on the AADSAS application itself, and then they either sent you like a separate application fee or something like that. These vary by school, but just some examples of questions that I had. For example, questions that were on my Dental College of Georgia application were, please share any necessary incidents that may have affected your academic record. While most of your achievements and involvement have been indicated on your application, we'd like to know if there are more. And if there aren't more, if you have if you get a question like this and you really included everything on your application, which is what I did, I used this section to say that I did include everything. And I kind of just talked about which ones were the most special to me and which I wish I had more space to elaborate on. That's what I used this for. Your dental exposures, just talking about your experience to the career and field. Future practice plans. They want to know that your heart's in the right place, with that kind of question. And then what experience confirms dentistry is your ideal career choice. Mine, because it's a state school and a pretty competitive state school for in-state residents, they were kind of asking residency questions, just what state was I a resident of, how long had I been, reason for becoming resident, my license number, stuff like that. And then they asked for proposed course information. So say I was in my junior year applying and was going to be taking more courses, they just asked for that to be listed, probably to make sure that you're going to hit all the requirements and whatnot. And then why are you interested in receiving your dental education from said school? But like I said, those can vary, and don't rush through the supplemental questions. I did apply to a bunch of schools, and having different supplemental questions for each school and this many questions was a little bit overwhelming, especially because once I was done with the application, I wanted to be done, not have to continuously answer questions. But just take your time and this is kind of like a personal statement too, but instead of not personalizing, make sure these questions are personalized for your school. Don't copy and paste. Really take the time and effort to answer each of these questions individually. But that's all that I have. I know I went through a lot of that super quickly, but I hope this was a good resource for everyone applying to and starting to think about their application. If y'all have any questions, feel free to send them in the chat. And if you think of any other questions later on, you could always message Kaplan's DAT, OAT, PCAT page, and I will answer any questions about the dental school application, the DAT, interviews. I've been through it and I know how stressful it is in the moment, but I will tell you that it gets better. Definitely being a year after the whole taking the DAT and applying and all that going on, looking back and knowing that I'm starting dental school, it's so crazy to me how time consuming and stressful all this is. So I would love to help in any way that I could.